Welcome back to True Crime with Johnny. Today's case is the savage killer, Jodi Arias. Her boyfriend, Travis Alexander, lost interest in her and started dating other women because he thought Jodi wasn't good enough of a woman to marry. She decided if she couldn't have him, that no one can in this brutal slaying. Let's get into the case.
What's going on?
A friend of ours is dead in his bedroom. We hadn't heard from him for a while. We think he's dead. His roommate just went in there and said there's lots of blood. I didn't go in, but I can give you the phone to someone who went in there.
Yes, please, can you?
Hello.
Hi, so what's going on?
He's dead. He's in his bedroom.
Okay.
In the shower.
Travis Victor Alexander was born July 28, 1977 in Riverside, California to Gary David Alexander and Pamela Elizabeth Morgan Alexander. Travis grew up very poor, and his parents were drug-addicted meth addicts, and they were very abusive and neglectful. He was bullied as a small child. He did have 7 siblings, including 3 brothers and 4 sisters, and it was just a horrible childhood. But as luck would change, at the age of 8, he was taken out of their care, and soon after, his father died in an automobile accident, and he was taken in along with his 7 siblings by his maternal grandmother. In this more stable environment with his grandparents, his true nature came out. He was very outgoing. He got along with everybody. At this point, he joined the Mormon church, and it was the perfect environment for Travis to blossom into the person he became. He did stand-up comedy under the pseudonym Eddie Schnell. He really just loved the church life. In fact, he became a member of the Mormon priesthood. He loved his friend groups. He had a support group. He got along with everybody at the church. In fact, he became a motivational speaker. And life would continue to bring gifts for Travis as he joined Prepaid Legal. It was a company that sold prepaid legal packages for people if they ever needed a legal defense. He became hugely successful in the company. In fact, they would send him all over to give motivational speeches to people in the company. The following clip is a good example of Travis's outgoing nature as he gives a motivational speech to this prepaid legal company. And it shows why he rose to the top. And if you understand a pyramid company or a multi-level marketing, basically Travis at the beginning, he goes to his friends or his family, sell these packages of prepaid legal. If they sell anything, Travis gets a piece of it. And so Travis was very good at that, and he got a lot of people underneath him. He was able to hype the crowd into getting excited to come join this multi-level marketing company. And they wanted to show that Travis was successful. He drove a new BMW. He wore beautiful suits. He tried to look extravagant to excite the crowd into thinking they were also going to make a lot of money.
We've flown in one of the top executives in the country, and he's an excellent trainer.
Just like anyone that's succeeded in anything in life, no one's story. You'll never read a book. You'll never or hear the success story from any type of stage where an individual goes, well, you know, my journey began and I kind of did a few things here and there, and I showed up to a few things here and there, and I read a couple books, but usually I didn't finish. And I got a lot of rejection, and most of the time I quit. And then I became independently wealthy and a millionaire, and life's great. Okay, you never hear that.
Along with being very outgoing and charismatic, he was also extremely flirtatious, and he was even characterized by some as somewhat of a player with women. He loved women. He had several different girlfriends, and he was an enormous flirt as well. Travis took his religion seriously, and he was, though, eager to get married. And he was approaching 30 years old, and in the Mormon faith, a lot of people had already had wives and husbands, and they were already having families. at the young ages of early 20s. So Travis was really up against it, and he had several women that he was considering. And that brings us to 2006 in Las Vegas, Nevada at the MGM Grand, where Travis Alexander was giving one of his motivational speeches to a crowd of potential prepaid legal recruits. There in the crowd is none other than bleach blonde-haired Jodi Arias. She had fallen into some pretty hard financial times, and she had caught wind of this PPL prepaid legal pyramid company, and she had previously worked as a small-time photographer and a waitress, but she was eager to get rich quick. There, standing on stage, larger than life, is Travis Alexander giving his pitch to this unsuspecting group. He's dressed in one of his flashy pinstripe suits, promising the world to this new group. Unbeknownst to Travis, he had become the new fixation of Jodi Arias as she sat there in the crowd with starry eyes as she stared at her new savior. Jodi had a long history of switching men and relationships like she would switch her shoes. She would approach Travis after the convention like a king cobra snake approaches his prey in the desert. This was the beginning of their whirlwind relationship that ended in a savage murder. So who is Jodi Arias? Well, she was born in Salinas, California in July of 1980, and she was of a mixed race background, Latino and Caucasian. Unlike Travis, she had a very loving family. Her father had several restaurants which her mother worked in. They noticed from an early age, according to her father, that Jodi had a problem with the truth. He said in an interview she had started lying very early on, and in junior high school she had tried to grow marijuana on the roof of their house, and her parents had found it, and they called the local sheriffs and had Jodi arrested. And from then on, according to her father and mother, she never trusted them, and she became very secretive. She did have several siblings, which she seemed to not get along with very well. In a statement, she had referred to her sister as dumb. But she had left high school in 11th grade, and this is when she began running to men to fix her. And her first boyfriend she would move in with was Bobby Juarez. She also had trust issues, and on several occasions, she snooped in Bobby Juarez's phone. Jodi had several more relationships with men following Bobby Juarez, most notably Daryl Brewer, and they would live together and also purchase a home in the Palm Desert together in 2005. However, it should be noted that Jodi Arias was a chameleon. She could adapt immediately to her surroundings. She also had a very dominant personality, and whatever she said goes. She also had a tendency to change her mind on a dime, coupled with the fact that she was very sexually aggressive with men, and she used it to control them. This brings us full circle to 2006 in Las Vegas, Nevada, at the MGM Grand, at that convention center, where she stood at the back of that PPL convention and watched Travis Alexander, her next obsession, on stage. Being as aggressive as she was, she approached Travis immediately, and he was taken back by her. Her hair was bleach blonde, and she was beautiful, according to Travis. He couldn't believe somebody so attractive would approach him, and he immediately invited her to the company dinner party. However, Jodi had a motive. She was pushing 30 years old. She had been from guy to guy to guy, looking for husband material. And there was Travis Alexander, a successful businessman. He had his own home, although he did have quite a few roommates, and he loved his family. He was religious in the Mormon faith, and with that started the beginning of their relationship, although they were not exclusively dating at this point, but they talked on the phone every day. It was reported that they emailed as many as 80,000 emails in the first 5 months they had known each other. But it should be noted that this was a long-distance relationship at this point, because she was still with Daryl Brewer in Palm Desert. Although Daryl Brewer said in an interview, once she met Travis Alexander, she had immediately come home to Palm Desert and told Daryl Brewer that they were no longer together. She was fully invested in her future plans with Travis Alexander, In fact, Travis had told Jodi, because he was religious Mormon, that he could not date anybody or marry anybody that wasn't Mormon. So in November 2006, just several months after they had met, she converted to Mormon, and she would be baptized by Travis Alexander. It's also of specific importance that it should be noted that she was extremely sexual with Travis Alexander right from the beginning. They would engage in all types of taboo sexual exploits. Travis had never experienced anything like this, and Jodi was far more sexually advanced than he was. Although some might argue that Jodi was doing anything and everything she could to be considered good wife material for him. And that included taking care of all his sexual needs, converting to his religion, being very attentive to him, looking pretty. So during this honeymoon period of their relationship, everything seemed to be going very well. And in February of 2007, in fact, they decided to become exclusively dating each other. Immediately upon them becoming exclusive together, Jodi Arias was at Travis's house, and like she did with all her other boyfriends, she hopped on his computer when he got up and hit that backspace button to see if she could find out if he had been writing emails to other women. She was extremely jealous right from the beginning. However, Travis, initially upon being together with her, was elated by her. And he had written an email to his close friend, Chris Hughes, describing Jodi Arias. I went from intrigued by her to interested in her, to caring about her deeply, to realizing how lucky I would be to have her as part of my life forever, Travis wrote. He also wrote, she is amazing. It is not hard to see that whoever scores Jodi, whether it be me or someone else, is gonna win the wife lotto. But these feelings from Travis and his friends would change quickly. And in the Mormon religion, premarital sex is not allowed. And Travis's very close friends, Chris and Sky Hughes from the Mormon church, their opinion of Jodi quickly turned sour. When they realized that they were having premarital sex together, they also observed Jodi to have very stalking behavior. When Travis would get up to use the bathroom, she would scroll through his phone and monitor his emails and his online social media accounts. The concerns from Travis's friends would really hit a boiling point when they invited Travis and Jodi over to their house. Chris and Sky Hughes were very worried about Jodi's stalking behavior, and they took Travis into the other room. They told Travis about their concerns about Jodi's behavior when they all of a sudden got a cold feeling over them when they realized Jodi Arias was eavesdropping right at the door. They looked at Travis and gestured to him to look at the door. She's right behind the door, Travis. Travis immediately opened the door, and there was Jodi Arias with blood-filled rage in her eyes that terrified Chris and Sky Hughes. And they would later tell Travis that they were worried they were going to find him chopped up in a freezer one day. Travis dismissed the 15 or so different concerns that Sky and Chris Hughes said to him as just overzealous friends that loved him very much, but he wasn't concerned at this point. Although things would quickly go downhill in their 5-month relationship, which seemed to revolve around hardcore taboo sex. During this time, it also appeared that Travis had a problem with Jodi's background, and a message that was uncovered seemed to suggest that Travis had insulted her grandfather's heritage, which was Latino. Travis was very picky with women, and he was looking for Mrs. Perfect, and he was slowly chipping away at Jodi Arias and all the defects he thought she had. Travis would rather quickly realize that Jodi Arias wasn't the marriage material he was looking for, but he did enjoy the sex with her. During these first 5 months of their official relationship, it was constant accusations from Jodi Arias that Travis was talking to other women. Jodi would also constantly bring up other men that were interested in her to Travis in order to make him jealous. We then fast forward to 5 months later to their breakup on June 2007. Jodi at this point had not been living in the Mesa, Arizona area, and their relationship had been long distance. It was clear from this point that Travis wanted nothing more of Jodi than as a sex toy, and several messages were uncovered where he had indicated that he thought Jodi, quote unquote, was a sex slave, and he described her as, "You're the ultimate slut in bed," he wrote. "You'll rejoice in being a whore. That sole purpose in life is to be mine, to have animalistic sex with me, and to please me in any way I desire," he wrote. Jodi was pushing 30 years old, and she was doing anything and everything she could to appeal to Travis and make him love her. But Travis had his sights on a much younger woman, Lisa Andrews, who was only 18 years old, that he had met at a church function. Meanwhile, as far as Jodi Arias was concerned, Travis knew his friend group and his support group did not approve of her and their relationship. Travis knew she had had multiple partners, and he didn't consider her real marriage material, but he did enjoy having sex with her. And that brings us to July 2007, only 1 month after Jodi and Travis had broken up, and he had started an intimate relationship with 18-year-old Lisa Andrews. And this made Jodi Arias enraged with jealousy. Lisa Andrews was a dream girl for Travis. He immediately started talking about marriage with her, according to her, right from the beginning. Although she had said several times that he was very sexually aggressive with her, Lisa Andrews and Travis would break up only a month or so after they had gotten together. Travis Alexander's ex-roommate told her that Travis and Jodi were still having sex together. Only a few short weeks later, however, Lisa Andrews and Travis would get back together after she said she could trust him again after he had insisted that him and Jodi were not together behind her back. Although this was a lie, because Travis and Jodi talked almost every day, and their conversations were sex-filled, and they were still having sex. Jodi Arias was an extremely determined woman, and she would not give up so easily on something she wanted, and she wanted Travis Alexander all to herself. So that July 2007, Jodi Arias moved from California to only 5 minutes away from Travis Alexander's house in Mesa, Arizona. Jodi Arias was completely obsessed with Travis. She would constantly stalk him. One night in August 2007, she had driven over to Travis Alexander's house unannounced and began peering in through the windows. And by the light of the television, she saw Travis and another woman kissing and making out on the couch, and he was undoing her bra. And Jodi Arias was absolutely enraged by this. The next morning, she came over and confronted Travis Alexander. Other instances included when Travis Alexander would have Bible studies or parties at his house, even though she was not invited, and even though they were not a couple, she would come over unannounced and act as if it was her home and that she was the hostess. Travis's friends were creeped out by this and thought it was very bizarre. The remainder of 2007 was the same thing with Jodi Arias and Travis. On again, off again, sexual rendezvous. He would go away on trips with her, but he didn't want anybody to know. Whenever he would meet up with Jodi, it was always in secrecy, and it was completely behind Lisa Andrews' back. But somewhere around the end of 2007, the beginning of 2008, Lisa Andrews had had enough, and she finally broke up with Travis for good. It should be noted, Jodi Arias' rage-filled, jealous behavior would manifest itself into several vandalizations of his car. The tires were popped several times. On several occasions when Travis was alone with Lisa Andrews or other women that he was talking to, strangely, the alarm would be set off at his house, and they knew it was Jodi Arias coming over to stalk him. Jodi Arias was not going to give up without a fight. And she had also gotten a hold of his passwords and broken into his phone as well as his emails and wrote several different threatening letters to the different women that Travis was talking to. In December 2007, after Lisa Andrews and Travis Alexander finally called it quits for good, he became interested in a woman named Mimi Hall, and he was trying to win her over, although they were not physically involved at this point. All the while, Jodi Arias was in the background, Travis's little secret, his sexual toy, but Jodi's patience was running thin. Jodi, unbeknownst to Travis, had begun to record their phone sex conversations, likely to post on the internet or to send to his friends to show he wasn't this religious saint that he portrayed of himself in public. Things were not progressing as good as Travis hoped for with Mimi Hall. She was dead set on being friends with Travis, although he was trying to win her over. But Travis was no saint, and he would keep Jodi Arias strung along in the background. He even offered her a job as his housekeeper. Travis had also agreed to sell Jodi Arias his older BMW because he bought a Toyota Prius, but it's unclear whether she paid him any payments or not on it. But really, he just kept her around for sexual gratification. However, things would finally hit a boiling point in this 2-year on-again, off-again relationship. Travis had invited Jodi Arias to go with him on his annual Cancun business trip, but at the last minute, according to an insider at his company at PPL, he had changed the name on the reservation in April to Mimi Hall, his new love interest. And this blew Jodi Arias' mind. She was filled with blood-curdling rage that she wasn't the one invited to the Cancun trip. And she couldn't take it any longer and decided if she couldn't have him, nobody can. And that's when she decided to plan the premeditated murder of Travis Alexander. Jodi Arias was extremely intelligent, and she would leave no stone unturned in the planning of Travis's murder. The first thing she did was move back to Yreka, California, to where her grandparents live. There, she staged a burglary of their home, because she knew her grandfather had firearms, and specifically he had a .25 caliber small-sized handgun. Once the police report was in for her staged robbery in Yreka, she now had the handgun, but it was considered stolen, so nobody could technically point back to her. The next thing she did was she had been a bleached blonde for years and years, and that's how everybody had recognized her. So what she did was she dyed her hair jet black. The next thing she did was plan the transportation method, and she knew that if she took a car that people recognized her in, it could place her in Mesa, Arizona. So what she did was she rented a car an hour and a half south in Redding, California. And when she went in, she didn't want anything flashy. She specifically wanted a little white plain car. The next thing she did was call her ex-boyfriend, who lived in the Monterey area, Daryl Brewer, and she asked him if she could borrow 2 5-gallon gas cans. But she also knew that that might not be enough to get her from California into Mesa, Arizona without filling up at a gas station. She went to Walmart and bought another 5-gallon gas can. What she also did was, after picking up the rental car and the gas cans, she filled up in Pasadena, California. She also set up an alibi with a guy that she had met by the name of Ryan Burns, and he lived in the Salt Lake City, Utah area. She had it all planned out. All she would have to do was fill her gas cans, drive over to Mesa, Arizona to visit Travis, and quickly head out to see Ryan Burns. Also, what she would do is she would take off her license plates. And with her meticulous plan in place, Jodi Arias on June 4th, 2006, drove straight to Mesa, Arizona with her black dyed hair, also armed to the teeth with a razor-sharp knife and a .25 caliber gun. She also turned off her phone so that it wouldn't ping on the towers. And she'd also placed a call to Travis to see if he was there. Was he alone? What was he doing? It should also be noted, because of Jodi Arias' meticulous nature, she had also thought of a reason for her to stop by and see Travis. She had developed a set of pictures that they had taken from a trip they had went on the year before. That was the perfect reason she needed to stop by and show Travis. So with that, as she drove in late at night on that June 4th, she had Travis's garage code, and she went into his house armed with a gigantic knife, the .25 caliber gun with dyed black hair, and she snuck through the house. As she walked up to Travis's door, he was awake, and little did he know, she was armed to the teeth and ready to strike like a prey mantis. She stood there for a minute or two and watched Travis from the door like the stalker she was. But little did she know that Travis's pug, Napoleon, had sniffed her out, and he began to bark. Travis looked up startled, but as he saw Jodi standing there, they stood up and embraced like old familiar lovers. They laid down and slept cuddled together till late afternoon the next day, when they began passionately making love, taking pictures of each other in sexual poses, and doing what they did best together. With Travis feeling completely relaxed and his guard down, he went into his shower and sat there. Jodi Arias came in completely dressed, and she started taking pictures of Travis with his new high-end camera. Travis was modest and he didn't enjoy the pictures, but she said she would delete them. Jodi Arias was also armed with a razor-sharp knife, and as she told Travis to stand in a Calvin Klein sort of position, she lurched onto him and stabbed him directly in the heart. Travis, completely shocked but stunned, turned around and she starts stabbing him in the chest. As he put his hands up in defensive postures, she stabbed him in the hands several times. Travis, stunned to death, bleeding profusely, stumbled out of the shower and made his way over to the sink, where he stood there and looked in the mirror, bleeding out of the mouth, because the first knife blow was to his heart, so it would cause bleeding out of the mouth. And as he looked in that mirror, Jodi Arias stabbed him a total of 27 times in the back of his head, his ear. She had also slipped and cut herself. As he stood there, Jodi Arias regrouped. Travis turns around to walk down the hall, and he's minutes from death. As he stumbles down that hall, he falls to the ground, and Jodi Arias, with blood-filled rage, comes from behind him and slits his throat from ear to ear. But she wasn't done with him yet. She went and retrieved that .25 caliber gun, and she dragged him back into the middle of the bathroom and shot him point-blank range in the head with that .25 caliber gun. And Travis Alexander, at 30 years old, June 4th, 2006, at 5:30 p.m., had lost his life. Even though Travis Alexander had met his demise, Jodi Arias had meticulously planned her getaway and alibi, and she would stage the scene, starting with dragging Travis Alexander's body into the shower, where she doused him with several cups of water to clear any DNA evidence that she might have left. The next thing she did was take that cup of water and douse the entire bathroom floor, the carpets, the beginning of the closet area, trying to dilute any sign that she was there. Jodi Arias would methodically, step by step, stage the scene, starting with removing all the bedding. Then she took all the towels from the area. She cleaned herself off meticulously. She took that camera, she took the knife, and she went downstairs and she put the knife in the dishwasher and ran it. She took all the bedding and towels and put it in the washing machine. She had meticulously gone through that camera and deleted every image that would have shown that she was there. She then shoved that brand new expensive camera into the washing machine, put detergent and a bottle of bleach. She set it to spin, and she was off into the night. She got into that nondescript white rental car with no tags on it, and she headed off to see Ryan Burns in the Salt Lake City, Utah area of West Jordan. Something else she would do along the way was she stopped and put the license plate on, but she had put it on backwards. Another thing Jodi Arias did to stage her alibi was she had thought if she left Travis a message that sounded like nothing was the matter and as if he was still alive, that would create a really good alibi that she had no idea what had happened to him. The following is a clip from that message.
Hey, what's going on? Anyway, my house is starting to gear up. I know Leslie called you, so I already talked to her, so you can call her back if you want, but it's not necessary. My phone died, so I wasn't getting back to anybody. And what else? Oh, and I drove 100 miles in the wrong direction. Over 100 miles, thank you very much. So yeah, remember New Mexico? It was a lot like that. Only you weren't here to prevent me from going into the 3 digits. So fun. Tell you all about that later.
After she had left Travis that staged message, she also left him an email indicating that she would see him soon. And she headed off to West Jordan, Utah. And when she got to Ryan Burns' house, she jumped into his arms even though they had just met. And she started kissing him passionately, knowing that he could possibly give an alibi to her on where she was. Also, because of the gas cans, there was no credit card transactions or video camera showing that she had ever stopped at a gas station. Ryan Burns would later say that she had had heavy bandages all over her arms. After she left West Jordan, Utah with her alibi, Ryan Burns, she headed back to Yreka, California, to where her grandparents were. She then staged the scene further by sending Travis Alexander's grandmother, who raised him, a bouquet of flowers. She also flew in to Travis Alexander's memorial. Another thing she did was she had called the police on her own down in Mesa, Arizona, to indicate she had nothing to do with it. What had happened to Travis, she wanted to know. But the police were hot on her tail. They had recovered the pictures from the crime scene and a bloody palm print with her and Travis Alexander's blood mixed together. The Mesa Police Department had contacted all Travis's friends, loved ones, siblings, people that had known him, and they all pointed the finger to Jodi Arias. So the police brought Jodi Arias in, and when Jodi Arias was brought in, that's when the lights, camera, action happened. She loved the attention. The first story she gave was, I wasn't there. I couldn't have been there. I haven't been in Mesa, Arizona since April. The detective pressed her. We have pictures, but Jodi Arias stuck by her story and her alibi, and she had made one fatal flaw. When she deleted those pictures off that expensive camera, she left the SIM card in, and even though she ran it through a spin cycle, those pictures would be recovered.
Were you at Travis's house on Wednesday?
Absolutely not.
What if I could show you proof you were there? There's pictures. And I know you know there's pictures. Because I have them.
Are you sure it's me? I mean, that because I was
Jodi,
not there.
It's you. I know you took pictures of him in the shower. And the camera actually took a couple of photos by accident. During the time he was being killed.
Really?
Detective Esteban Flores came up for the second time to interview Jodi Arias. But now she had changed her story. Now it was 2 white ninjas covered in all black came in to kill Travis Alexander. But Jodi Arias had made herself into the hero. She said she tried to protect Travis, and the man walked up to her and tried to shoot her, but his gun got jammed. She didn't want to leave Travis, but they had gotten into her purse and found her car registration with her home address on it. And they said, if you say anything, we're going to kill your family. And that's the second story of lies that Jodi Arias came up with.
So what you're telling me about 2 people coming in, or however many people coming in, taking care of him and letting you go, is just so far-fetched. I can't believe it.
They were white Americans, from what I could tell. They had, what do you call those things? They're like beanies, but they cover your whole face. And you've got like holes for your nose and your mouth. She was over him, and I just rushed her and I pushed her. She had a knife.
You said she had a gun before.
I don't know if she had a gun. he got my registration out from my wallet. He said, "You must be that bitch from California. Do you ever say anything about this? And don't you call anybody? And don't you say anything? And don't you act like anything happened?" He didn't touch me, he was just held the gun to my head and he was like, "You don't go anywhere."
So you're going to continue to tell me that you didn't do this to him?
Did not kill Travis.
I believe you did.
And finally, the third and final story that Jodi Arias would come up with, which was she was a domestic abuse survivor, and Travis Alexander, according to her, had beat her terribly through the relationship, although there was no corroboration and just another lie she made up. But that was the story she was going with. Post-traumatic stress, and that Travis, which he never did, but she said he attacked her in that shower and she was forced to shoot him, even though it would later come out that the stabbings came first, and when she had ended up shooting him, he had already been dead. This finally brings us to the Jodi Arias murder trial. The trial was broadcast worldwide and millions of people watched it. The trial was centered around Jodi Arias and her lies versus tough as nails prosecutor Juan Martinez with a 30-year decorated career as a prosecutor. And Juan Martinez would tear Jodi Arias to shreds under cross-examination. As the trial was set to begin, Jodi Arias went on a media tour. She went on local news, Inside Edition, and several other broadcasts. Most famously, she was quoted as saying, "No jury will convict me. Mark my words on that."
No jury will convict me.
Also famously, she was seen more concerned with her makeup and hair than the charges levied against her. In the following clips, you'll see some of the highlights from this contentious blockbuster trial.
Did he ever ask you to wear an outfit like that?
No.
Did he ever call you a whore?
No.
A slut?
No.
A three-hole wonder?
No.
The Cancun issue, ma'am. You never told the detective about the Cancun issue, did you?
What Cancun issue?
Do you remember that we're talking about Travis Alexander? Let's start with that.
Yes, I remember that.
That's why we're here, because you killed him, right? Mr. Alexander is out of the shower, correct?
Yes, he is. Or he stepped out. I don't know if he has 1 foot in, 1 foot out, but he stepped out.
Well, he needed to have been out of the shower in order for him to grab you and body slam you, didn't he?
Not necessarily.
Oh, so you're saying that he was in the shower, and from the shower he kind of reached over and grabbed you and body slammed you sideways, even though he wasn't out of the shower?
No, I said he definitely stepped out, but I don't know if he had both feet out or 1 foot out.
So when he is in the shower, he at least takes one step out, and you're far enough away so that the water's not going to be getting on the camera, right? Right?
Yes.
And in this position where his legs are open, potentially, right? Right?
Yes.
You're saying that he reaches over with one leg still in the shower and he body slams you. That's what you say, right?
No, it's not what I said.
This is a very small closet, isn't it?
No, it's bigger than the cell that I live in.
It's bigger than what?
It's bigger than the cell that I live in. It's not a small closet.
Ma'am, we don't want to know where you live in. Do you understand that?
I'm just using that as reference. It's not small.
Do you understand? Did I ask you where you were living?
No.
We're clear, right? We do not want to know where you're living right now. You understand that?
Okay, sorry.
No need to be. Take that attitude that... Is there an issue with you with answering the questions as they're posed?
Sometimes, but I'm trying to answer them the best I can.
So is it an attitude issue with you then?
Objection, argumentative, Your Honor. Move to strike.
I'm not asking you if you were looking at his eyes. I'm asking you whether or not you could see his face.
Not really. Like, he was kind of like...
Okay. So what you're saying then is that he is more like a bull rather than a linebacker because he's got his head down and he's charging like a bull with his head down. That's what you're saying, right?
Not quite down like that, but maybe in between. That would be accurate.
All right, so he's in between here. If he's got his head down, as you tell us that he does, and you say you can't see his face, though. That's what you say, right?
No, I just don't remember whether I noticed his face or not. He was just this ball of fury coming at me, and that's what I remember.
And you said you couldn't see his eyes. That's what you just said, right?
I don't remember seeing his eyes.
So that means you didn't see his eyes, right?
That doesn't mean that. It just means I don't remember looking into his eyes.
So if he's down in this position that you're talking about, with his head down like that, how could he possibly know to come after you if he's looking down? How is he going to do? Feel his way around?
Sustained.
He had his head down. That's what you said, right?
He was like I can just describe it as like a linebacker unless I get up and act it out, which I would like to not do if possible.
Then do it. Go ahead. Show us how he was standing immediately before, or how he was sitting or crouching immediately before this happened. If you could do it just from there. And in retrospect, do you think that perhaps some of the comments that you made were a little unfair to him?
Yes.
And ma'am, with regard to everything that he did to you, and how you feel, and how you know of the circumstances and the situation that you were in, with regard to Exhibit 205, do you think in your mind, because you were the one that was experiencing, do you think that, do you?
Objection to that being shown, that it's completely irrelevant, and it's quite frankly...
Okay, counsel approach. Counsel approach.
You were being asked about how you were aggrieved about the fact that he may have been cheating with the defendant. Do you remember about that?
Yes.
And you were asked about, how many times he had been cheating, correct?
I'm not...
You were asked about that,
Okay.
right? And that was part of the breakup, right?
Yes.
Do you think that it is appropriate, given everything that they claim that he put you through, do you think that it is appropriate to take a knife and slash somebody's throat?
Objection, relevance. Relevance, and it goes into our opinion. Our opinion is not.
I don't know. I was trying to kill myself, I think.
Ma'am, you've said that many times, that you tried to kill yourself, right? In court.
I don't know that many, but I've recounted a time that I did.
You've said it more than 3, 4, 5 times, right?
Perhaps.
And in fact, one of the things that you told us about was that, when you were in the Maricopa County Jail, that you tried to kill yourself, right?
No, Siskiyou County Jail.
Siskiyou County Jail. So you do remember that. And that when you tried to do that, you took some Advil. Do you remember telling us about that?
Yes.
And that what you did then is you took a razor, right?
Yes.
And that you cut yourself, right?
It was a nick.
It was a nick. And because it stung so much, that you said, nah, this is not the way for me to go, right?
I didn't say that.
You said it stung and that's why you stopped. Isn't that what your direct testimony was?
That night, yes.
Right. And that's the night that I'm talking to you about, right?
Yes.
I'm not talking to you about any other night, am I?
It sounded like you were.
No. Just to be clear, I'm not talking about any other night, am I? Do you understand that?
Okay, I understand that.
And you nicked yourself and it hurt, right?
Yes.
And I think the word that you used, stung, right?
Yes.
To use your standard, ma'am, of how you stopped because it stung. Can you imagine how much it must have hurt Mr. Alexander when you stuck that knife right into his chest? That really must have hurt, right?
Argumentative.
Sustained.
Ma'am, were you crying when you were shooting him?
I don't remember.
Were you crying when you were stabbing him?
I don't remember.
How about when you cut his throat? Were you crying then?
I don't know.
So take a look then.
These were some of the highlight clips from the hours and hours of available footage from the trial. What was clear from the trial, however, was Jodi Arias became the most hated woman in America. When Juan Martinez would ask her a question, she would turn her head and face the jury to answer his question, as if she was disrespecting Juan, like she didn't want to directly answer straight to him. Also, there was an indication from this trial that professionals could be bought out for their opinions, as Jodi Arias had several psychologists and therapists come and defend her claim of post-traumatic stress from being a battered woman, although it was clear after Juan Martinez ripped their testimony to shreds that they were just hired lying advocates and they would give any opinion you wanted for the right amount of money. The following clip is Alice LaViolette. She was paid by Jodi Arias' defense to come and claim that Jodi Arias was a battered woman.
I know what a clinical interview is. All right, then we seem to be having problems with it. With regard to a clinical interview, ma'am, isn't that a situation where you sit across from an individual and you talk to them about the issue that is at hand? Isn't that true?
You interview them, you ask questions, you do an assessment.
So when you are interviewing, you're not talking then, right?
Mr. Martinez,
yes or no? My question is, are you talking, yes or no?
Mr. Martinez, are you angry at me?
Ma'am, is that relevant to you? Is that important to you?
Ladies and gentlemen, please refrain from laughing in the courtroom.
Is that important to you whether or not the prosecutor is angry with regard to your evaluation? Does that make any difference to your evaluation whether or not the prosecutor is angry? Yes or no?
It makes a difference to me the way I'm spoken to, and I would like you to speak to me the way I speak to you.
Ma'am, is it true that just because the prosecutor is angry at you, is that going to make you change your answer with regard to whether or not this is a battering situation?
No, certainly not.
The fact that the prosecutor may or may not, or you may perceive him as being angry, that really has nothing to do with your evaluation, does it?
No, but it certainly is.
Yes or no? Does it have anything to do with your evaluation? And Judge, it's a yes or no answer.
Judge, she's trying to answer the question. Some of these questions cannot be answered by yes or no.
Ms. LaViolette, can you answer that question, yes or no?
I'm not sure at this point what the question is, because when someone is approaching in that way, it's very hard to listen.
All right. Restate your question.
Just because somebody has a demeanor that you perceive to be angry, is that going to sway your opinion as to what you think in this case?
No, it isn't.
Is it going to change anything about your evaluation based on the way the questions are asked?
No.
We finally reach May 8th, 2013, the day of the verdict in the Jodi Arias murder trial. It has been 4 years and 11 months since Travis Alexander was murdered on June 4th, 2008, and the jury deliberated for 15 hours, and the following clip shows the jury come back into the courtroom and give their verdict.
The State of Arizona versus Jodi Arias, verdict, count 1. We, the jury, duly impaneled and sworn in the above entitled action upon our oaths, do find the defendant as to count 1, first-degree murder, guilty. 5 jurors find premeditated, 0 find felony murder, 7 find both premeditated and felony. Signed, 4-person. Is this your true verdict, so say you want it all?
After the guilty verdict was read, the smug look on Jodi Arias' face had been wiped off. The next part of the trial was the penalty phase, which was done twice because it was a hung jury. On April 13th, 2015, years later, Jodi Arias received life in prison without parole, but she wasn't done yet. Years later after that, on November 4th, 2020, she appealed the Arizona Supreme Court, but they declined, so she's still in prison to this day. And the last updated picture of Jodi Arias was in 2021, taken from inside the Arizona Department of Corrections, where she'll remain for the rest of her natural life. So what do I think happened in the Jodi Arias case? First of all, I think it's a case of fatal attraction. Jodi Arias loved Travis, and she just couldn't let him go. Second point is, Travis did not take seriously the warning signs of Jodi Arias and her stalking behavior, and he played with her emotions for years. Ultimately, Jodi Arias suffered from extreme blood-filled rage at the thought of losing Travis Alexander, and it drove her to murder. And she did it in brutal, premeditated fashion. And with that, thank you for tuning in, and stay tuned for our next episode.